HB 103 by Soileau et al. Relating to the admission of homeless children to the public free schools.
Chair recognizes Mr. Soileau.
Mr. Chairman, members, Committee Substitute House Bill number 103 simply clarifies language is currently in the Texas Education Code. Currently, right now, under the code, school districts are told that only students that live within the school district are allowed to attend school in that district. Most school districts throughout the state have interpreted this to mean and include homeless children who reside in that district but who do not have a permanent residence. However, there has been some confusion by some school districts, and in fact TEA has reported since September about 100 cases where they've had a very difficult time getting these homeless children admitted into school. To give you some idea of the magnitude that this problem could have, there are about 18,743 homeless children that attend Texas public schools. We do not know how many homeless children there are that do not attend public schools. This bill will clarify the language and provide that school districts are to accept homeless children who live in temporary residences, foster homes, and that type of thing. And I move for adoption.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield?
Mr. Soileau, you yield?
Yes, I yield.
The gentleman yield.
Mr. Soileau, I think you have a good bill, but I want to ask you a few questions on the record.
Sure.
You know, Valley school districts are educating children from Mexico and other countries. Does your bill change the definition that would currently, as I understand it, the school districts require that you have at least some sort of residency so they can turn to a particular relative or uncle or guardian or something so that they can identify it? Well, how are you dealing with that problem?
The way that we're dealing with that problem is we're saying that if that child is defined as homeless, as defined by 42 United States Code annotated by the federal government, then that person would qualify and would be allowed to attend that public school. Let me point out to you that the United States Congress has instructed all states throughout the nation to provide an education for homeless children. And as such, there are some funds, federal funds, that could be available to the state of Texas to help in the education of these homeless children. I do not believe that the situation that you're talking about would be affected one way or the other by this bill, because they would, of course, have to qualify as a homeless child under the federal guidelines that's been set up.
You can see the concern that school districts along the border would have.
Sure.
If all of a sudden
Sure.
hundreds or thousands of children started showing up.
And that's one of the things I'm trying to do, to try to take away the concerns that some of the school districts currently have, because they are afraid to take a child that does not have, quote, a permanent residence, for fear that the state will say, we're not going to send any ADA to you because you have accepted a child into your school district that doesn't have a permanent residence. So this allows the school districts to do what they're supposed to do. It allows the state to do what Congress says that we should do and get some federal funds, and clarifies the language for all parties.
Thank you. Have a good bill.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
For what purpose, Mr. Horn?
does the gentleman yield?
You yield, Mr. Soileau?
Certainly.
He yields, Mr. Horn.
Thank you, Curtis. I've got a couple of questions. One, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to control a situation, for example, where a student is expelled out of one district, so they go to another and just say, I'm homeless. How are we going to do that?
Well, first of all, let me say this, that the school districts, of course, like they always have, will have to determine whether or not one of these exceptions exists to make that child a homeless child. I would suspect that the school district could set up their own guidelines for proof that this child is in fact homeless, either lives in a foster home, There's through whether it's a temporary welfare hotel, a congregate shelter, transitional housing for mentally ill, what have you. There's simply no way. I understand you're concerned about that, but I don't think that there's any way we could address that kind of complex issue in a single piece of legislation. I would only say that the school districts would have to continue to do what they do every day, and that is make sure that one of these exceptions apply, or in fact that child lives within the district.
Okay, since we're going to leave it up to the school district, let me give you another hypothetical.
Sure.
Let's say we have a 280-pound guy that runs a 440 in about 4.6, and he's highly recruited by another district, so he declares himself homeless, and the other district would love to have someone of that stature. Do you feel that they may kind of bend the rules a little bit?
Well, that's why I included in the bill language that a homeless child may not attend the school district for the purposes of extracurricular activities. Again, the school district would have to make that determination just like they have to now. And we filed a committee substitute primarily to address that concern so that we wouldn't have school districts that would be recruiting other students from other districts or to try to build up the football team or something of that nature. So we made sure in this language that would not occur, and specifically told the school districts that they are not to accept a student on that basis.
But that would be up to the local district also.
Well, it is now.
Okay.
It is now.
Madam Speaker,
For what purpose, Ms. Hill?
will the gentleman yield?
Will you yield, Mr. Swallow?
I sure will.
He yields, Ms. Hill.
Thank you. I hope I can make myself clear. Hypothetical school district, under court-ordered desegregation, and under that court order, every student must have proof of residence. And if student's parents do not live in the school district, the parent has to designate somebody as the guardian of that student. It would seem to me that it would be possible for the school district to violate the court-ordered desegregation if they followed the things that are in your bill.
Well, I'm not sure how you think that would occur, Ms. Hill. I'm not understand what you're saying.
All right. In the Garland Independent School District right now, there's a lawsuit going on involving a student whose mother actually lives in Wills Point. He has shown, I think, 5 different addresses for this year. And his mother, I think, is now having the babysitter declared as his guardian. But we have instances of people trying to move into the Garland Independent School District, fake an address, and attend the Garland Independent School District, and that violates the court-ordered desegregation.
Oh, I understand. I understand what you're saying now. But I would submit that problem exists even today, Ms. Hill, and that this bill does not in any way give that child or provide a loophole for a child to say, I want to go to Garland School District because we've got better academic standards or a better football team or something of that nature. Because that child has to satisfy the requirements under this bill and under the federal guidelines of what is determined as a homeless person. Now, it would be nice, I will admit to you, it would be nice if we could provide in this bill that either the parent or, quote, the guardian reside in the school district. One of the problems, though, that we run into is that there are some homeless children who have no guardian, who are essentially wards of the state for that period of time. So for that reason, we shied away from putting any more requirements on that particular case than the federal guidelines provide. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
You don't think that your bill would put the Garland Independent School District in conflict with the federal judge's court-ordered desegregation rules?
I certainly don't. In fact, I would think that the federal court would certainly recognize acts of Congress and should recognize acts of Congress that the states have an obligation to provide an education to homeless children, and so long as this state is doing that without any type of intention of circumventing federal court orders of desegregation, I would think the courts would have no problem with
You
it.
don't think this boy would be classified as homeless?
I'm sorry?
You don't think that this particular boy would be classified as homeless?
No, I do not. If he has 5 different residences, as I understand the situation you told us, 5 different residences, he lives with his mother.
Actually, in Wills Point, which is not in the Garland Independent School District.
Well, I would, under the federal guidelines, do not think that they would comply.
Thank you.
Members, I move for adoption.
Question is on passage to engrossment of House Bill 103. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. It's a division vote. Strike the board. House Bill 103 passes to third reading.